exciting, you know, just the last icing on the cake, right? And like I said, it's just a continuation of everything that we've been doing. The reason, my understanding is that from the writer of the textbook, perhaps they wanted to chunk it properly and not give you too much, but this could have been in one learning unit, so or one chapter. So learning units 5, 6, and 7 could have been one thing, but I suppose they basically wanted just to divide it properly so that it's more digestible to the entire class, right? So don't look. Obviously, we go through a long semester, especially first semester. It's quite long, and so when you hear about 7 learning units, at some point it's like this is overkill, right? Getting too much. No, it's basically what they did is simply they took some learning units and they just divided it up so that it's clearer, right? So in totality, perhaps we could say we have maybe three long chapters for the textbook. You have learning unit 1 and 2 into one chapter, learning unit 3 and 4 into one chapter, and obviously all the advanced learning unit into one chapter, right? But so let's delve into learning unit 7. And you probably have seen it. It's job costing. And we want to go slightly deeper. And why actually do we need to look at this? Because, like I said again, this is the best course or the best module to actually instill in you the financial skills, if I may say. Um, Job costing in itself, there are three main uh, type of costing, which is the job costing, the batch costing, and the process costing. So I will try to make it as short as possible and not try to overwhelm you with definitions and all that. But let me stress key points so that as we move, you can understand that it's quite easy. Because remember, this masterclass is just to give you a very good feel of the whole entire learning unit so that you know you can at the end of this session you can say to yourself it's very easy. I'm just going to study, do my part, but it's very easy, nothing difficult. All right, so we are looking at heterogeneous products when we talk about job costing, and an example is very important here because whether you are running your own business, especially the entrepreneurs that we have here, or hospitality, I mean, this is the most suited module for hospitality students because you deal on a daily basis with projects. So see a job costing like a project. So a customer would approach you and say, I would like you to manufacture for me, for example, this type of chairs. But obviously, every different customers will ask you different things. And so that's the reason why each project will be unique. The product or the outcome of the job is unique. And is that not the definition of a project? I don't know if some of you did project management. Just a second. Awesome, Tammy. No worries. So right, so each project is unique, but when you're looking at, as it says, a batch, the project, the product that are being manufactured are very much similar, and that's all you need to retain. So for a batch, you will have really similar type of product that are being manufactured, and that's just the difference. Similar product, but for job costing, each job is unique, right? So you might have to track multiple jobs and each job will have an ID. So job 411, job 412, job 413. It is being manufactured by the same company in the same manufacturing facilities, but it's different jobs. And there is now the importance of tracking. So we need to look at the whole entire costing system. What are the costs that are involved? How are these costs accumulating? And we categorize everything per the job. I trust that this is clear, right? But again, it's a project. Customer is king here. The customer would come and give you a specific type of chair or a specific type of house. But now, this, uh, ladies and gentlemen, is actually the most practical way of thinking about finance or about business or about any venture that you would like to undertake out there, is that you would get clear cut real life examples of something that you need to do, a business that you need to do. I would like maybe to be manufacturing or to get a company to manufacture for me a specific type of setting or product so that I can sell that product, right? So again, manufacturing, like I said, why do it applies also to services. So don't just see it as, okay, everything is manufacturing here. Remember, the reason why we're looking at the manufacturing side is because the manufacturing side is the most sophisticated side of any business that you will have out there. So if you understand the manufacturing or the production type of business, you have a grasp on anything out there. And that's the purpose. So we're not burdening you with things that you're like, but look, I'm not even involved in any manufacturing. So why are we studying this? No, the plan is to give you a broad and deep understanding of financial management, right? So there are three core components, and you would guess what are those three? Like I said again, it's basically a repeat. So by this time, for example, if a student goes to the exam, right, to write the exam, and the student is struggling, exactly, Sierra, the student is struggling, for example, with direct material, then I know, I'm sorry, but I know that that student has not done his part, and unfortunately, at this level, especially when we are talking about you obtaining a degree, you see, we can't afford to have people who are graduating but who don't have the necessary skills. So somehow it has to do with our reputation as an institution and the quality of education we're putting out there. So again, please practice these things for now, but you understand the key principles. So when we're talking obviously about the direct material, which we will be looking at the materials that we're using for the product, for the particular job, right? It's a job, it's a project. Remember, I summarized it for you. Um, but you might be told to track separate different jobs at once. And that's what makes it exciting, right? You have the direct labor, which will be the touch labor, right? The people who are going to handle the product and do the actual production, right? And then obviously the three musketeers, without the last one, they're not the three musketeers, right? Which is the manufacturing overhead. All manufacturing costs that are not direct material or direct labor. You know this by now. In fact, do you understand why I was telling you there is no need even to memorize a single definition? If any of you as a student is spending time memorizing a definition, clearly you understand that you are wasting time, which time you could have saved for other things. So this is about repetition, it's about understanding, and it's about application. Right. So there are 6 steps. I didn't invent them. They are straight in your textbook. If you open your textbook right now, you will see that there are 6 steps there. Right. But obviously, we're just going to go through the steps, but we are going to summarize what it's all about so that you're not thinking, should I memorize these steps for the exam? No, you don't need to memorize the steps for the exam. But you need to understand actually when you have a question on job costing, what exactly you're going to be looking for, right? We need to allocate overhead. What about that? And that is as clear as it's stated. So you need to think about, okay, if I'm talking about job costing, I know direct material. Yeah, remember like learning unit 5? It's the same thing here. So you know your direct material, you know your direct labor, but the difficulty comes with things that are indirect. And so we need somehow to make sure that we allocate those overheads, indirect cost, properly. And if you remember in Learning Unit 5, we were talking about something like how do we assign these overhead costs to different departments? Do you remember the part where we were talking about the production department and the support department or the service department? It rings a bell, right? Very simple. And just like any management studies out there, you've had this. It is in your DNA as a student, right? So you know that there are core functions in the business. There are core departments that are doing the actual thing, that are producing the actual product, right? You know about them. But there's these other departments that are very equally important because they sustain those production departments. HR is one of them, right? So we will have a primary apportionment and a secondary apportionment. I'm not saying anything new that you do not know, you know, right? So either we can move from distributing the overheads to all production departments, so meaning from product for to the production department and the support department or the service department. We distribute, we apportion the overhead. Proportion means we give the correct proportion, the correct portion that belongs to each department. That's all. But then we can do a secondary apportionment, which we reallocate some of the money that we allocated to the service department. We now reallocate it to the production department. So from service, I don't know if you can see my mouse, from service to production. Remember again, we are just covering the theory. No memorization is needed. It's just something you need to keep in mind. Because you need to have that critical thinking, right? That's the skill there. What am I looking at here? Right. So the total department overheads, you need to sum it up. So once you have a portion, whatever belongs to a department, it's just adding it up. And then you have the total for that department, right? But another very important thing would be here at point 5. And this deserves to take a bit of time, right? So to calculate the absorption rate, it is in your learning unit 5, because we were talking about the allocation basis or the cost driver. Does that ring a bell? Cost driver. What does that mean, the cost driver? Is that we just look at all the activities that are happening in the business. We need to be able to ascertain that this particular activity is really the main activity that is driving the cost. That's all that we are saying. And most of the time for you, you don't need to wonder too much because they will provide that to you. They will tell you, for example, our allocation or the absorption rate is based on this. So we're determining the rate to systematically absorb overhead into job cost. And the last thing is just we calculate the job cost. So you will be calculating. So you know when you have a question on job cost, something that is not going to miss is what is the overall cost of this job, of this particular job, and then price. And you know, every time I tell you price and cost, you know you are already looking at what? Why are we dealing with price and cost? Come on, my advanced learners. At this stage, why do we talk about selling price? Yeah,
to work out the profit.
Sierra. Profit, of course. Sierra, that's so refreshing, right? So it's guys, it's finance, it's common sense. So it's common sense, right? So step 5. Let's go to step 5 because we need to choose the right tool to absorb the overhead, and obviously this is going now to be the practical part where you can see actually, okay, he touched on the theory. Now, it's this simple. Because the job, to accurately cost that job, indirect manufacturing overhead must be systematically applied, right? This is done by using a predetermined overhead absorption rate, predetermined, which is calculated before the period begins. And that's what finance is. Finance is always about projection. We're planning ahead of time. So we can't just arrive in the year without any plans. Then we are planning to fail. You can't just show up at the exam on the last day and expect to pass. You have to prepare for the exam, right? So the basis for this rate should be the job's primary cost driver. So then you would hear something like the cost driver is actually the unit of production. What they mean by that is that we're going to look at the budget. Remember, we came from last year, we are coming into this year. Picture yourself. Or can I maybe give an easier example? So we came from last month into this month. So what we would do is we would already budget ahead of us. We budget. We say, okay, the total budget for the overhead is going to be this amount. But so now if we have identified that actually the units that we are producing, those are the cost drivers. So we would just take the overall budgeted overhead divided by the budgeted number of units, because we will budget, by the way. We'll say next month we would like to produce. I'm speaking to each one of you individually. When you are thinking about a business, you say, I want to produce X amount of units in this business or in this project. I would like to produce maybe, let's say, 10. All right. So, and then it becomes simple, is that the budget that I will say, okay, maybe 1,000 rand, I will put aside 1,000 rand and I would like to have 10 units. Then it's easy. It's just the rand X amount per unit. So 1,000 divided by 10 gives me 100 per unit. That's the absorption rate. Okay. But it could be also based on direct material cost, the cost itself. Like, we are budgeting this amount, but I will spend on the direct material. Remember, it's the direct material. It's the real deal that we need to use to do the production. And I think this company needs to focus on the direct material. So if it is for example, chairs, we need the wood. So the wood is the cost driver. And you will see for some company, for example, that's the reason why they are tracking the cost of that particular thing. Why do they track it? Because it is the most important cost for their business. It could be the oil price. It could be the price of wood. You will see many companies are like that. Oh no, you will see they're checking. They all, for example, okay, let me give an easy example. For if you are in transportation, your cost driver could either be the seats, how many people needs to sit, right, in the car, or the fuel cost. So there is not too many things that you need to think of. There need to be one thing that is the main thing that drives the cost. Is this clear? If it's not clear, you have a question, feel free to raise it up now and say, I still don't get it. It could be the direct labor cost. For example, you are in an industry where to find the people to help you do the work, that's the most important thing for the business. Because there is not too many skilled laborers to do that particular business. It could be construction, and you need masons, and there is not enough masons. So you will see that this is a cost driver, meaning that if you don't find enough masons, your cost goes up to the roof because now you have to pay more to get the people. You see, depending on the business. So if it is the cost, it will always be a percentage, right? Because you will take the overall budgeted overhead. So you have a budget for the overhead divided by the specific cost for the direct material or the cost for the direct labor. Sometimes you don't even know actually how many people you're going to employ or how many hours it's going to take. So you will go by the cost. That's all. You will go by the cost. So, but if you know the hours, you say, for example, yeah, we have enough people always who are showing up. We just know that we need this amount of labor hours. Then you will use the labor hours. And the cost driver is the rand amount per labor hour. If it's the machinery that drives the cost, then it's the rand amount per machine hour. But like I said, you don't even need to worry about this. This is just to make you understand, the critical parts of this concept, but it will definitely be provided to you. For example, look at this example here. Taibo Limited. Taibo Limited for has a particular job, right? The given information that we have is obviously direct material. They will provide it to us. Direct labor, they'll provide it to us. But then they say the overhead application rate is 50% of the direct labor cost. Are you all watching? Are you all seeing on your screen what it says? It's clear. So you can't panic here and say, oh my goodness, 50% of that, what is this? They are talking about the labor hour. 50% is simply half of this. And that's it. That's how they calculate it. Because remember, it is indirect. So they're providing you already the clues of how you need to go about applying the overhead. You apply the overhead by looking at the direct labor cost, and you simply need to have 50% of that direct labor cost. That's what goes to everything that is indirect. So as you can see here, applied overhead, 50% of 30,000 equals 15,000. And the rest for all jobs is just adding up these three musketeers. That's all. Can't be that difficult, right? 40 plus 30 plus 15, 85. How are we doing? Are we on the same page? And obviously, don't be surprised that somehow they will talk about the selling price. Why would they talk about the selling price? Ciara reminded us because we are business people. We need to think about what's the profit here. So don't act surprised. Oh, why are they adding the selling price here? Because it's just a markup, right? So to determine the selling price, we add a markup percentage. So they will give it to you. They say the markup percentage is 30%. 30%. So you know you will take the cost, 30% of the cost. Let me just grab my calculator. I hope you have also your calculator. Time to practice. Please bring up your calculator. I don't want you to be just looking around and like not doing anything at the moment, right? So our calculator is here. So basically the markup. Actually, you don't need to do that, but in any case, you know I love the shortcut quickly because you would just say, okay, the markup is of 30%. So I need to multiply by 1.3. 1.3. But if you say, well, that was too fast, I don't even understand. Okay, so if they say the markup is just you add a markup of 30%, so you take the actual cost, which was 80K, right? You multiply it by 30%, which is 0.3, right? So we know that. We all know that, right? So that's what it gives me. So I know this is the markup. So the markup meaning I need just to take this amount and add it up on top of the 85. So 85 plus 25.5 gives us what? This amount. You know that it is in thousands. It is in thousands, right? That could be a quick way to calculate it, right? Is that true? So we good, right? Anybody who's here was saying, I don't understand these calculations. All good, huh? All right. Okay. So you will see this thing in your textbook. It's not going to come up in your exam, but this is for your information. Job costing, use a job sheet. What is a job sheet? It's like a passport for each job. It is for tracking purposes. It helps to track every cost. So the job cost sheet is the primary document for accumulating and summarizing the cost for a specific job. The reason why I like job sheets is because on that job sheet, you will have the job number, the customer, the specification. So you can see actually the history. What is this? So if they provide you a job sheet, then don't panic. You know what it's about. It's about just showing you. So for this job, this is the customer. This is what they want. This is what they're asking for. So it provides you all the materials, labor, and applied overhead from start to completion. So it's as usual, us in finance, we love to summarize things. We love dashboard, something that can provide you a broad view. So it is your practice to be looking at something like this and say, oh, I get it. So this is the direct material, right? So they bought on this date the direct material, material A and material B. I can see the quantity, I can see the cost, I can see the total amount. I can see the labor. So don't be surprised that there will always be only three things on there. The three musketeers will always be there. Right? So don't say, wow, I don't get this thing. It's too complicated. It's not. All right.
Sorry,
So
sorry, Patrick.
yeah,
Can
yeah,
you go back to that? Um,
yes.
just a quick question there. The direct material, you've got date one and date two, 5,000 Rand each. But why is the total 5,000? Shouldn't it be 10,000?
No, so this is an example.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh.
it's just
Okay.
for example purposes, right?
I
So
see.
in fact,
Okay.
Ciara called me out even last week. So obviously, when I'm doing this, I'm just summarizing some of the details. If it's something that we have to go through, it's an example, then the details must be correct. This was just to give you a picture of it. But thank you so much, Denver, because we never know. Someone might take it so serious. So that was for example purposes to give you a visual. Like I said, in the exam, you're not going to get it, but you should know about it. And if just maybe the examiner decided that just wanna maybe run a joke on you and decide to give you a job sheet, don't panic. So you should know what is on there, right? So let's look now at a real case study. It is in your textbook. You have everything in your textbook. You know how it goes, right? Uh, but it's the idea of tracking multiple jobs. So Liam Key Company